all the conspiracy theories and thousands of dead voters or hundreds of thousands of legal voters, some of them apparently illegal immigrants have voted, all of that he was told point blank by his own people and by Republican officials wasn't true. So I understand some people will say, well, so long as he believed it was true, doesn't that get him out of the jam of criminal liability? And the answer to that is, first of all, he's got to testify to that. So I don't know that he's taking the stand. But at the end of the day, it's for the jury to decide whether they believe him. Anyone can say anything, doesn't mean you have to believe it. So the process is just beginning. There are some interesting legal issues, I'm sure, that will come up. But this is an indictment against Donald Trump. What's going to happen with co-conspirators 1 through 6, whether they'll be indicted separately, whether they struck plea deals with the prosecutors and their indictments are under seal, we'll all find that out in good time. But the answer to your question of was I surprised, I think I'm more relieved that a decision has been made, and now we can move on to the next steps.
So the next steps is, I know there have been efforts by Trump's legal team to try and delay his Florida trial on the documents, the handling or mishandling of federal documents or documents that were supposed to not leave, I guess, the White House. And that got pushed to, I believe, March. And now you have a new timeline on, winding with the J6 indictments. But to hold on those for a moment, have Manhattan, where Manhattan District Attorney Bragg has been pushing forward his case. And is there any start date for that? Is that November of this year, or is that going to be pushed back as well?
Sure. Fortunately, for only because I have my own views on federal election law and what should count in the Constitution. And of course, never did anything about it. But the Constitution was paying off Stormy Daniels the equivalent campaign contribution within time because it helped the campaign. And I personally find those kinds of theories wildly expansive and really subject to a different issue. Oddly enough, the first time that theory was used, it was used against the former vice presidential candidate. It was John Edwards. Right? Because he was expensing his recent indictment. Yes, those are serious charges. The delay in the Florida case has to do with handling of classified information, which includes making sure that Mr. Trump's attorneys have the appropriate clearance so they can look at the documents. Their procedures, this is not the first rodeo for prosecuting someone on classified information. Those have separate issues involved in, you don't want, obviously, the classified information to be made public as part of constitutional right of confronting the witnesses against you and all that. But as I said, there are procedures for that, and they're well known. It's just that there's a sorting process that needs to be done. With this indictment, it's just against Mr. Trump. It is 3 counts of conspiracy and one of obstructing and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. It's not complicated. There are many witnesses, but this isn't a civil case, so they don't get to depose witnesses and do discovery. There's criminal discovery where the government turns over its investigative report, its documents, its notes of interviews and everything else. And that's it. If Mr. Trump's people want to go talk to Mr. Giuliani and Eastman and the others, they're free to do that. That's not necessarily going to be slowing down the trial, although they will be slowing it down because they have no advantage in rushing these things.
Right.
Clock works against them.
So with all these competing interests, the calendar, the clock, the politics, what should somebody in the middle, take away from this? I mean, there are people out there that support Trump and are going to support him no matter what. But if you were talking to that person, and I'm pretty sure some people that are listening are shaking their head trying to figure out, how does this make sense, or why is this happening? Is, let's push aside for a second that the documents, because some folks may say, oh, the documents is just paperwork. Who cares? We know that classified information is, and government secrets are very important. But the situation with January 6th is something totally different. There were, it was a protest that essentially resulted in the death of people trying to protect the Capitol, some people trying to storm the Capitol. And it was virtually an uprising against the outcome of the presidential election. And so no matter how you slice it, it resulted in violence and death. And that seems to be, what January 6th indictments are about. It's about, his role in instigating this. Is that basically what the evidence is being presented suggests from the special counsel?
Yeah, when you look at January 6th, that was an endpoint of a couple of months preparation. So, you're looking, January 6th was the barbecue, so to speak, but getting all the coals, firewood, the mats, all that, that was the run up. And President Trump's team did really separate things, uh, sort of light and dark. Uh, it's, you can believe whatever you want. You can believe that.
So don't change that dial. We're unpacking the J6 indictments of former President Donald Trump when you get back on WVOX. Don't change that dial. Yeah, everybody, this is incredible. Hey, all right. Tell Chris we'll get to him as soon as we get back from break. Thanks.
Okay.
So there goes our first caller. Looking forward to hearing what Chris has to say. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Send us a note, drop us a line. Feel free to call in. The phone number is 914-636-0110. Here we go. Here we go. Let's see.
Thanks. Honey. Fairfield. Parents Hill. This forest of very great style and renown. Colonial Village Flowers specializes in triple seasonal flowers ranged in good taste with lovely low-key results. Here, Colonial Village presentations, bouquets, and arrangements look like they were actually grown, collected, and gathered in the natural setting of your own garden. Good taste in flowers has for years been a special trademark of Joe Ward and his talented floral arrangers at Colonial Village, featuring the natural look without pomp or ceremony. Please know that there is at least one flower shop on your classy wavelength. Joe Ward's Colonial Village Flowers at 1515 Weaver Street in Scarsdale. Call 723-2888. That's 723 a 2 and 3 8. Have questions about Medicare? Ask Medicare Mart. Tune in to WVOX AM 1450. I think it's walk down in the kid and yeah, we're in a wide range of insights. And to learn over 5 hours for anyone, it's practical and reliable into one thing Medicare. So it's one of the things. Let's get back to it. On the chicken on right here on the
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We're talking about what happened here with the January 6th indictment of former President Donald Trump. And on the line, our special guest is Charles Knapp, former Assistant United States Attorney for the Eastern District, also former Assistant District Attorney in Manhattan, and former Mount Vernon City Inspector General. And I just want to thank you for joining us here on WVOX 1460 on your AM dial, WVOX.com worldwide. We're unpacking the issues related to January 6th indictment of former President Trump, and we have a caller that called in. And if you want to call in with questions or concerns, the phone number to call is 914-636-0110. Again, that's 914-636-0110. And with us on the line is our first caller, Chris. Chris, thank you for joining the dialogue on what happened here. Tell us, what do you think is happening?
won the election. Okay, I think his Frenchman Billy would be very insulted.
Uh, wow. No, it's all good. Keep going. I mean, look, what else can?
So emotionally, that he actually. Okay, so, but anyway, I want to just talk about if he becomes president, what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
On the charges, question of him being able to self-pardon himself. Okay, I don't know. Constitution really allows for that to occur. Okay, I think it would be a precedent. Okay, but the state charges fall into a different category. Okay, he would have the democracy or constitution would have to be kind of our particular constitution would have to be overturned for him to overrule the state charges. You know, we have a republic form of government with states' rights and all of that stuff. It would kind of be like the Netanyahu model, okay, where he believed because he was an elected, okay, although it's a different democracy than we have.
Right.
Because he was elected, the right to overrule the judiciary. That's Netanyahu's position.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it wrong?
Well, if I could just jump in, just very, very briefly, since you raised Israel, that's a parliamentary form of democracy. So you're right; it's not like ours. And in a parliamentary form of democracy, the elective branch, Parliament, rules supreme. So it's not for the court to second guess laws. They don't do it in Britain. They don't do it in New Zealand. Both of those are like Israel. They don't have written constitutions. So it's just a different kettle of fish. But as to your explanation or concerns about self-pardoning and all that, let me just nerd out for 1 second. Pardon power is one that was always associated with the king. And the king set up set up a court system that responded to him. So the king could pardon people who were convicted in court. The court had no power to go after the king until 1649, when they had a revolution that allowed it. But let's put that aside. I'm talking about Britain. Yeah, Britain and Charles I and Cromwell and all that business. But the king didn't have the power to pardon himself because, as a theoretical legal matter, it was an incoherent position. He couldn't pardon himself because whatever he did was the law. So now you get to the Constitutional Convention in the United States. We adopt all the common law principles from England, except we don't have a king, obviously. We do have the pardon power from the executive. And so what that suggests to me is that the president would have the same pardon power as the king did. That pardon power only extended to others, not himself. So, it's an interesting position. It would be unprecedented because no president has ever been convicted of anything that he needed to, quote unquote, pardon himself for. So it would be uncharted territory. But if these originalists on the Supreme Court are really originalists, then they would have to say that that's beyond the pardon power as contemplated in the Constitution. Period. End of story. With respect to the state, you're right. The president does not have the power to pardon a state offense. That's up to the governor. So that would be the end of that.
Well, you got to hold that thought. As you can see, we are getting into what happened here, asking the question, unpacking what's going on with former President Donald Trump and the indictments. Don't change that dial. Listen to what happened on 1460 AM dial. We'll be right back from this quick commercial break. As you can see, everybody, it's getting serious. It's getting serious. I'll come through to New Jersey. Let me know when. I'd be more than happy to come and provide some perspective, some encouragement, and some organizing ideas on how you guys can hit it and make it work for you. So definitely stay tapped in and know that we're ready to go. Send me a DM and let me know what you want to do.
Quarrel in Washington. To try to overthrow the results of the 2020 election. Tom Morrow says the charges can't be proven and says it's all political during this presidential campaign.
Instead of debating the issues against Joe Biden, that President Trump is sitting in a courtroom.
Both on NBC's Today Show. There's
Hey, Richard.
Hey, I'm here. Talk to me.
Still got Chris on the line.
Great. Yeah. Ask him if you can stay on for the next segment so we can finish out.
Got it.
Thank you.
200 points. Francis has arrived in Lisbon, Portugal.
So Francis is challenging Europe to retake its role as peacemaker and bridge builder.
I'll be showing you this for road on That's the AP's Walter Ratliff. Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
A lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something money. If you can get both, especially when it comes to health care, that's enough.
Okay, Richie's going to stay on for the next segment.
Great. Thank you.
We got it.
Way more satisfying which too. Right for Medicare and double. Like the school health insurance plan. Double. Medicare throughout the last quarter century, and members have shared nearly $3 billion of each other's bills. Wait, fun. I like how you take care of your health. The self-employed part of the gig economy, train your applicant. Right now, I get a price within Very nice. Can you repeat the number you need? 5551 Bible. Okay, 5551 Bible. 5551 Bible. Buddy, it's sunshine to the end. Yeah, I'm pretty nice on Thursday. Thursday's high will climb into the lower 80s. More humid on Friday and a bit more unsettled as well. Showers, thunderstorms becoming more locally high, climbing into the upper 70s here. Hopefully, sunny lower 80s on Saturday and look Sunday as well. Sunshine 83. June 14, 50 WVX. The Whitney Global Media Station.
We go. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon. You're listening to What Happened Here on 1460 on your AM dial or worldwide at WVOX.com. Now, before we went to break, Charlie, our special guest, former assistant United States attorney for the Eastern District, was talking about, the different dynamics of what can happen here, or in his words, let him nerd out on explaining whether or not Trump can pardon himself if he wins the November 2024 presidential election. So our caller Chris called in, raising some of these issues, and we are gonna let Charlie finish laying out the facts, and let's flesh out what's going to happen, or what's happening, or what can happen, or what cannot happen. Tell us, Charlie. What do you think President Trump is going to be able to do or not do, based on where we are right now with the indictments and or the possible prosecution that may result in his loss of the cases?
Well, just pick up on the pardon. You don't need a clean criminal sheet to serve as president. You just need to be native born American and over 35. That's it. That's the qualification. Beyond that, it's up to the voter. And then, as we know, the electors to decide who's going to be the next president. So what that means is by the time the election rolls around, Mr. Trump will be, I think, 78. If he becomes president, the only real issue is will he be in the White House or will he be drinking? Medical anyway. So I'm not sure that we really need to worry about the pardon power. And as Chris said, it wouldn't apply to Georgia if there is an indictment, or Manhattan if there should be a conviction. I don't think he really cares about what his rap sheet looks like, so long as he can exercise power from the Oval Office.
Mm-hmm. Chris? Hey, Chris, did we lose you? Yeah, we can hear you. We're
Question on the state okay? If he were to be convicted, okay, and whatever that is, will be able to make an arrest on him? Arrest him? Are you talking about Manhattan or let's say Georgia? Well, I mean, arrest. Yeah, he's arrested. He's brought in for the arraignment, and then bail is set. I mean, that's what happened in Manhattan. They just didn't. If he's found guilty, okay, then law enforcement, okay, would be able to. State law enforcement would actually be able to arrest him to bring him in. Well, no. You're confusing things. If he's found guilty or pleads guilty, it's up to the judge to decide what the sentence is. In the Manhattan case, frankly, there is, in my view, a less than zero chance that he does any jail time, even if he's convicted. On the Georgia stuff, that's more serious. And, I don't know what the Georgia laws would be, but, if there's an indictment, we'll find out exactly what his potential legal peril is. But then at that point, if there's a conviction, it's up to the judge. And, putting a former president in prison is not going to be something that people might.
That the judge finds Trump guilty and gives him a jail, sentenced him to a jail term. Okay? Now, if that occurs, state law enforcement, if Trump didn't surrender to that, to that verdict of guilty with jail time, state officials would have the authority to arrest him.
Right. Well, if he didn't surrender himself when he was supposed to, a bench warrant would issue and he'd be arrested on that warrant and brought in. Let's be realistic. What's going to happen if there's a conviction and if there's a sentence that includes prison time, his attorneys will ask for a stay pending the determination of the appeal. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon. I can't imagine in the middle of an election season any appellate court saying, no, you cool your heels, and, we all know how quickly appeals progress. I mean, you'll be into 2025 by the time it occurs.
Okay, if all the appeals are over, and the conviction stands, he could be arrested.
Well, arrested. He goes to prison. If he doesn't go voluntarily, then they'll help him along, yeah.
Right, if not voluntarily, they would have to arrest him or whatever they would do and bring him in.
Yeah, but then the question is, for the Georgia matter, there is a Republican governor there, Knapp, and you wouldn't want to be facing the pressure he would likely be facing, pardon President Trump, should there be a conviction. So, and they can say whatever they want. It's a weaponization of the Justice Department. It's criminalizing political speech because, goodness, if you had to live up to all your campaign promises, our country would be even more bankrupt than it is. That kind of thing. It's nonsense in this case because what he is accused of is a very serious, intentional attempt to undermine proper workings of in terms of transfer of power. Yeah.
Didn't Governor testify in the Georgia case?
That I don't know. I don't know exactly who testified in Georgia, but I think he went on record as saying that he wouldn't pardon him, but of course, that was then. We'll see what happens.
All right,
we're a long way from there anyway.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for calling in. And if you want to call in with questions, the phone number is 914-636-0110. Again, it's 914-636-0110. Now, Charlie, it just seems far-fetched that this would be the situation that America is in. I mean, this happened, or a variation of this, where a presidential leader was jailed, happened in Brazil. And in Brazil, former President Lula went to jail, got out of jail, and guess what? He ran for president again and won. So,
yeah,
I mean, what do we make of this situation with former President Trump? I mean, is this a situation where he wins and just stays jail free? I mean, the Republican candidates for president, there's only seems to be one, maybe two. Pence finally said something on Twitter today saying that no person should be above the Constitution. But it was really candidate Hurd, the former congressman from Texas, a Republican, that said, Trump is running for president, stay out of jail. And that kind of struck a raw nerve with people. So, I mean, I don't want to pontificate for Republican candidates, but what are they saying and what do they say? And how come the numbers, or at least the numbers that we see suggest that the voters in the Republican primary are going to support President Trump over others.
Over everybody. Yeah, no, look, it's politics, as you know. You make your bed, you got to sleep in it. Many years ago, the Republicans had the opportunity to try to blow a whistle on some of President Trump's worst impulses. They didn't, because the lure of power, I think, was too great a temptation. Now President Trump has what seems to be an unshakable lock on about a third of Republican voters.
Mm-hmm.
That being the case, a Republican has to go through Trump to be elected dog catcher, pretty much at this point. So it's not a surprise that only Representative Hurd, Chris Christie, maybe Vice President Pence are finally coming out of the woodwork. Well, Chris Christie was out of the woodwork for about a year. But, you know, you get what you pay for with this situation. And it may be that what happens is if Trump somehow is not the Republican candidate, then you would see a requirement that whoever is the candidate agree to pardon him should they be elected, because then there'd be no issue about the pardon in exchange for, 30% of MAGA Republicans, let's call them, voting for the Republican candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Trump might decide to third party if he's not the candidate, but it looks like he's going to be the candidate. So, the ball is really in the Democrats' court. They have to present, and I think they're starting to, a vision that's positive for the United States. Move away from all the gender distractions and the woke distractions and all that, and talk about the bread and butter issues, because frankly, that was Trump's appeal. He talked about bread and butter issues. He may not have been, or as my grandma used to say, he was economical with the truth as to what he was doing, but he nevertheless spoke to those issues that were important to the voter, whereas the Democrats are sort of, flying way above the fray, talking about all sorts of other stuff. Biden brought them back to earth a little bit on that, but the thing that concerns me is President Biden is an old guy. And one of the questions inevitably will be, if he is reelected, will he make it through a second term? And I'm not so sure that Kamala Harris is that deeply appealing to the Democratic voters. So the Democratic variety of reasons, the sector seems to have weathered a storm. We'll see what happens with any spillover in Ukraine, or, what other international surprises may lay in store. But, there's just something wrong with the media. I think that their message is we live in chaotic times, everything's going down the toilet, where at a minimum from COVID, the ship of state has been stabilized and seems to be heading in a decent direction. And it's up to the Democrats to bring home that message, try to focus on legislation that will help people, force the Republicans either to get on board or come out against things that people want, and, an old-fashioned election on the issues.
Excuse me, you got a caller.
Okay, we have a caller. Who? Thank you, caller, for joining. You're welcome to what happened here. Oh yes, we can hear you. Thank you for calling in. Tell us what do you think is happening?
Rental and everything. Anyway, I get her, and yes, I just tuned in because I actually had an appointment. So I hear what's going on, but I hear how one side. Now, I just want to ask you a question, if you don't mind, because I know that you're, bright guy and you're up on everything, and you're down the middle is what I see from you. Although I know you're a Democrat, okay, but yeah, that is certainly teasing. Here, though, really, that like, but I mean, offensive, but I mean, really, smart, and I'm dreading it right now. And then also, whatever you get stuff about how much shit they pay. Nothing to do.
Don't go. Don't change that down because I want to talk to that sentiment when we get back from a quick commercial break. You listen to what happened here. We're unpacking the J6 indictments of former President Donald Trump and going through the issues. Don't change that down. Here we go, y'all. This is serious. And all I know is this is definitely a serious situation with the former president. But I'm telling you, there's so much to unpack here because the question that was just asked about what do I think and how do I synthesize the public sentiment. I think there's going to be a big surprise for Democrats. That's what I'm going to say for right now, and I'm going to let you hear me speak at length um, on the next segment when I answer the full question when she finishes getting it out. So just hang tight for a second and let's see what how this is going to go down because it's going to be a big surprise. All I can say. Oh, coming right back now from break. Here we go. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon. You're listening to What Happened Here on 1460 on your AM dial or worldwide at WVOX.com. Big salute to 950 Kev on Instagram. What's up, man? We got to connect. Kev is crazy. That's my nephew. What up, nephew? Looking forward to you calling in with your questions. The phone number is 914-636-0110. And we have on the line a caller that was asking me a question before we went to break. And we were hearing from former Assistant United States Attorney Charles Knapp, who was unpacking some of the dynamics with not just on the Democratic side, but on the Republican side. And we were just going through some issues. And former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District, before in the previous segments, laid out, the methodology and the thinking behind the indictments for the J6 involvement of former President Trump, as well as touch upon the documents case in Florida. But before we went to break, a question was being asked to me. I'm going to ask if you can restate the question so everybody hears it in full, and I'll be more than happy to give you my feedback.
Okay, thank you. That I know you are, and you're right, way out left, like some of them pretty good, like that, with your opinions and sometimes reading down the middle. Is what I mean, Rich.
Thank you.
You know that, and I pull in.
Thank you.
Back in. That's the most horrendous thing in the world. What I've done, believe me, now listen, I am a Republican, I'm conservative, and I don't approve of a lot of the things. There are certain things about him I don't like. But right now, I think he's our best bet because he is tough. Christie's a lot of hot air. Get him, it's giving me these up, forgive me. And all the other ones, not so much. From down south there, South Carolina, a lot of people don't like him for whatever reason. But, whatever, that's another story. And then there's, so, if Trump does get in, and Biden doesn't, I mean, okay, more specifically, let me get to one point here.
Sure.
I is a good choice for this country.
So, all right, I'm glad you asked that question. So let me start by saying President Biden, from a substantive standpoint, has delivered things that Democrats have wanted. And I'm going to point immediately to the Inflation Reduction Act, where he has made close to half $500 billion worth of investments into energy infrastructure, which kind of crosses party lines. It's a real serious need and issue. So that one act alone kind of accomplished so much that has not been done over the years. And his attempts to kind of support people with school debt and try and provide relief is, from what I can see, authentic. And so he's hitting on all the issues that he promised to attack. The one issue that he did not, and he really needs to address, is immigration. And this is where I think there's going to be a big surprise. Even though he did all these good things for, school debt relief, tried, put it on pause, etc. Well, I'm giving you the left side of the equation. So I think that what's really going to give him a lot of issues, especially in New York, is how the immigration crisis is playing out in New York City and how it starts to affect areas outside of New York City. And I think Democrats are in for a wake up call if they do not, if the federal government doesn't step up to have a more robust response. And history shows that cities do a terrible job at handling immigration, which is why it became a federal role. So I think with your sentiment that you were pointing to, the cost of gasoline, the cost of food, inflation, the tenuous situation with the economy, all these things are going to add up to people being frustrated, and the key voters that the Democrats want are more than likely going to stay home and not vote because they're upset about something that could have been addressed more aggressively. But I just hope that that those in power hear the masses and address the issue that they're being asked to address, which is immigration.
That is really, because we are a disaster. We saw the poor mayor down there begging and everything. That should be no good on every level. And they also should not be allowed to vote. Now, you don't think there was voter fraud, and you don't think there's going to be more voter fraud, and I certainly.
Now, this is where I will say, and Charlie will, speak, from his experience. I believe that there was definitely some things wrong with the election. I can't point to it, but I do know that from a process standpoint, I've been in a situation where an election was so close that if you stopped for a moment and just evaluated, the information and the evidence, you would see that, there were lots of problems that resulted in my loss, from dead people voting to to people having their addresses changed, even though they didn't change their address, and they were denied the opportunity to vote at their polling location. Now, I have the facts and I have the data to support it, though. I didn't, so on the flip side, I can't speak to the electors or the people that Trump organization and team sought to have go to Congress and vote for him. That's beyond me. But what I know is, statistically speaking, when I compared the voter files of the 2019 June primary for mayor to the voter files of Democrats that were supposed to vote in the election from a few months before, there were just fundamental differences that showed massive tampering by folks at the Board of Elections. And
I look at my Democratic friends and everything else, and we have to do it like this. That's not what the first and the few that have admitted that. I want to tell you that.
But it's hard to prove, and if you don't have the resources to prove it, it's incredibly tough. But I just know that from my vantage point, I know that what I did after 2019 was I spent time advocating for changes to the election law, and many of those changes have been put into place. I'm happy to share that if you go to vote, you can vote anywhere within your assembly district. And a lot of people may not trace that back to me. It's fine. But I was one of the voices that said you should be able to vote anywhere inside your assembly district without, being denied. And that's a big change that takes away a suppression tactic by the powers that be. I don't. My view is I haven't seen illegal immigrants or illegal people vote too much more than Frederick Douglass, who was born on January 1st, 1900, that voted in the 2019 primary. I've seen more of that than illegal immigrants voting. So I can't speak to illegal immigrants because I haven't seen that data. But I just know that we have to improve and we have to make it easier for us to understand how votes are protected and the integrity of that process is strengthened because it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, if you can go to the ATM and get your cash out, you should be able to go to the ballot box and put your vote in, and it should be secure just the same way as your ATM is.
And the other, the left hand, you have another call about you go right now.
No. You're just you, me, and Charlie. So we're coming down to the final moments.
Sorry, Charlie, I just got in a little bit late, and I didn't hear who were, So, but I heard you saying, and Charlie doesn't sound like sorry today. It sounds like way further left than you.
No, Charlie. No, Charlie's giving me a legal analysis. Charlie's giving a legal analysis, and I think that's the fair part about it.
Let me just say this: on the economy, the way I look at things is nothing is in a vacuum. In every other Western economy, the West is miles ahead. Right? It's not perfect, but we're miles ahead. And as to the election reform from this, I think.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Charlie, for being with us. You too. Thank you, all of our listeners and callers. It was a great show, action packed as usual. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with great guests talking about the latest. Whatever you do, just don't change that dial. Stay tuned to WVOX. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thanks, everybody. And one more thing before I go. If you didn't hear Charlie, he said the biggest difference between President Trump and Giuliani and his team and me, Mayor Thomas, is that they had theories and I have evidence. So there's a big difference between the two. And that's part of the reason why, I went the route I went was participate in the process to advocate for changes to the law so that, the powers that be can't put their thumb on the scale and deny people the right to vote. And all I can say is I hope that you guys pay close attention, participate, vote, but don't hesitate to call in, tap in, ask questions, and let's do whatever we got to do to help you elevate your community and your family. Y'all take care, and we'll be talking to you again soon.